Thank you very much, Peter. Hello, everyone. So, today I want to talk to you about both fair work and workplace health and safety and the impact that it can have on your business and organization, and a little bit about how both regulators work. So, we'll start with talking about how fair work and workplace health and safety are both proactive and reactive. So, fair work are proactive when they actually come to a business and they look for areas of compliance and non-conformance. Some of the things that they look for, we're going to talk about today. And first and foremost is this form here. So, this form is called the Fair Work Information Statement. It's a two-page document that it's mandatory to give all of your employees and then to keep a record of that the delivery of that of this form to those employees. So my advice is, if you haven't done this in your own business organization, or if you have a client that hasn't done this, the way that you do this is you actually go onto your search engine, you type in Fair Work Information Statement PDF and print that copy. You then give your employees a copy of this, including casual employees, and then you keep a copy on file that they sign. So you put that on their file. It is actually a mandatory obligation, and if you don't have proof of this, it can result in fines and penalties. When they're reactive, Fair Work will usually react to an employer or an employee complaint talking about things such as underpayments or unfair dismissals. We'll talk about these further in a future podcast. But when they do come into a business, what they do look at in relation to underpayments and making sure that we're paying on the right award is compliance in those areas. A lot of employers have verbal agreements in place where they say, okay, I believe you're, say, a level two, or we're just going to pay you, say, $25 an hour. When Fair Work do come into a business or an organization, they actually look for, or they classify every employee under the most relevant award in line with their job description and the duties that that employee performs. The obligation is actually on you as the employer to define that award and that level, and then reflect that in a contract of employment. If you haven't got that, that's something we're more than happy to answer questions about moving forward following this webinar. The next thing that we'll talk about is policies and procedures and agreements within your business. And the best way to explain this is to use an analogy of when we were, whether it be when we were growing up as children or teenagers or our own teenagers. When we start to get to that age where we're able to go out and use a little bit of freedom, our parents would usually do two things. They'd put in place expectations, processes, and consequences. For example, the expectation is, okay, we're going to let you go out with your friends, but you need to be home by 10 o'clock. That's the expectation. The process then is this: if you can't make it home by 10 o'clock, you need to let us know this way so that we know when to expect you. And then we run into the consequence. If you walk in the door at 11 o'clock and we've not heard from you, if you've not followed the processes, these may be the consequences. The same is true in business. We need to outline a legal foundation of expectation, process, and consequence. Because as you know, if we had that expectation in our head and then we jumped down our children's throat at 11 o'clock and they knew nothing of it, what's the first thing that they say? Whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't know it. Like, how did I know? I didn't know. The same is true with employees. If we haven't outlined that, the employees will say, I didn't know. Therefore, that's why I pursued that course of action. So it's a little bit on fair work. I want to step now to workplace health and safety and talk about how they as a regulator can be proactive and reactive. So they're proactive when they come out to a workplace and they look for areas of compliance, which we'll go back and talk about very shortly. They are reactive, usually following an incident within the workplace, whether that be a work cover claim, an ambulance being called to site. And this is when they come in and they actually are looking to see what was in place to prevent that. But from a proactive point of view, when we go back to that, I want to talk to you about what workplace health and safety should look like in a business when we talk about 5 pillars today. As we do this, I want you to think about how your business or organization compares to this, what you've got in place, what you may not have in place, or even your clients' businesses. So the 5 pillars we're going to talk about today are commitment, preventative, reactive, consultative, and then record keeping. So I want to talk to you first today about commitment. It is a mandatory requirement for a PCBU or a person conducting a business or an undertaking to have a workplace health and safety system specific to your business in place. That starts with the commitment. And a commitment is a workplace health and safety policy that you have displayed in your workplace that outlines the duties and responsibilities of management, supervisors, and then all other employees within the business. We then go into preventative. We all want to stop incidents and accidents occurring in our workplace. So, what we do is we usually have a workplace health and safety manual, but we then need tools for our employees if they do identify a hazard to put in place and to raise that with us as the employer. These are things such as hazard identification forms, job safety analysis, safe work method statements, and safe operating procedures. We've got to give our employees access to these so that they can escalate this to us and they can manage risk and task effectively. Sometimes, though, no matter what we do, accidents can occur in the workplace, which leads us to our third pillar, which is reactive. So when things happen in the workplace, what is in place for your employees to report that to us? Okay. If something does happen, how do they let us know? I'll give you an example of this, of one of the some that we met recently in business, and they're happy for us to share this story. We go take you to a hospitality business, and the owner of the business comes in. It's a Tuesday at this time, and he sees one of his chefs with a burn bandage from their first aid kit in the kitchen. He went up to him and he said, "Hey, what happen? Did this happen in the workplace?" "Yes, it did." "When did it happen?" "Last Thursday." Keep in mind, we are at Tuesday. The employers then said, "Why did I not receive an incident report form? This is the first time I've heard about it. Why is that?" And the employee says, "You know what? It was just a little burn and I thought nothing of it. I just wanted to get in, get the job, and keep going." The employer, though, has had the sense to say, "Let me have a look at it." They've removed the edge of this bandage and seen that the wound is actually, or this burn is badly infected. They've then taken the employee to the doctors, and it turns out the employee is now suffering from a blood infection. This employee was then away from on work cover for 3 weeks, which is a cost of about $3,000 to the business. If that employee, though, had been able to report that via an incident report form, they would have been able to give proper medical treatment and assess that employee and administer that. And hopefully the downtime would have only been a couple of hours and a lot less of a significant cost to the business. We then go on to our fourth pillar now, which is consultative. When we put these things in place within a business, we want to consult with a cross section and scope of the workforce. The way we do this, a simple way, is toolbox meetings. When's the last time that you had a toolbox meeting in your business? This is a good opportunity to talk about current topics and find new topics. You can do this via Google, or if you work in an outdoor environment, it can be something as simple as hydration. It can be in an organization or an office. It can be housekeeping, leads, anything like this. So find topics and discuss it with your employees. Then put it on file, because this shows that you care about workplace health and safety, and you're actually building a body of evidence, which then leads to record keeping. Record keeping is the recording of how you deal with and how you discuss workplace health and safety in the business. You're going to have things in there such as a risk register, and also records of obligations or observations that you've met. For example, when was the last time that you had an evacuation in your business? Was it 6 months ago? Was it 2 years ago? Okay, find out what your current obligations are and meet them. But when you do these evacuations, do an observation checklist as well. Did we check the toilets? Did we make sure no one went back to grab their belongings? They actually followed the evacuation procedures in accordance with the evacuation plan that we've got set within our business. So I hope this has been able to give you some food for thought and a little bit more of an understanding about what your obligations as employers are. I look forward to discussing things further and in a little bit more detail in a future webinar. Feel free to ask any questions via the ESS Small Business website. We're happy to answer these and your specific requests, and we look forward to seeing you in a future webinar. Thank you very much.